SCP-268. Item SCP-268. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-268 is currently to be maintained within, as it has been deemed that a change of use for facilitation of escape by the restricted person na, personnel or humanoid SCP is too great. However, the possibility of use by field agents after further testing is under review. See Addendum 268-05. S. Description: SCP-268 is a twill-wool new boy cat. The design and the make seem to be of Irish origin, due to the style and fabric. It is estimated to have been created in the late 80s to the early 190s. The fiber analysis is inconclusive. The only markings on the cap are a small label with writing in the middle Irish, reading "The garden is the serpent's place." However, there are various indications that this label was sealed into the cap in recent times. Due to the nature of the artifact, testing has been extremely difficult. SCP-268 seems to be a normal hat until it is worn. Anyone wearing the hat, however, becomes suddenly and instantly unnoticeable. Subjects become unmemorable, thoroughly ignorable, or taken for granted by all observers with specific prompting are to later recall physically seeing the subject, but can give no specific details other than seeing the man with a hat. Observers seems to have the overwhelming feeling that the wearer is someone that was supposed to be there and thus did not merit thought or notice. During initial testing, remote just completely forgot what they were supposed to be observing within the chamber, and it was not until the D-class subject wearing SCP-268 spoke out loud that he was noticed again. Removal of the artifact vocalization and physical interaction with observation seems to be the only way in which wearers of SCP-268 can make themselves noticeable. Once an observer has been made to notice SCP-268 wearing the individual, they slowly begin to ignore the subject once more, unless kept actively engaged by the wearer. Testing reveals that if a subject wears SCP-268 upwards of 20 cumulative hours, its effects seems to linger with diminished potential on the subject even while not wearing the artifact. Testing in this area has been cautious due to the possibility of containment breaches, but one incident, see Addendum 268-04, has shown that its artifact is worn long enough that the effect is rendered permanent and unbreakable. Extensive research is still unable to determine whether or not electronics are directly affected by SCP-268. Observers viewing an SCP-268 subject through electronic means still have difficulty acknowledging the subject's existence, and even when noticed, the observations report to be unable to see the face of the individual in question. Observation note pictures of SCP-68 wearing individuals as being blurry. In digital media such as surveillance camera is reported to become grainy and unfocused. Research is unsure whenever these alterations are extant and physically or merely perceived due to SCP-168's properties. It should be noted that although capturing SCP-268 through visual electronic means has been difficult, motion sensing, wet sensing, heat seeking, and similar devices all trigger correctly when encountering an SCP-268 wearing subject. Addendum 268-01. SCP-268 is noted to have similarities to SCP-180. SCP-268, it however does not seem to function on inanimate object, and more importantly does not directly steal the identity of its host, while SCP-180 causes its host to become unrecognizable after SCP-180 itself is removed and another object. This seems to be the side effect of its function of identity theft and transfer. Meanwhile, SCP-268 could be said to steal the identity of long-time wearers as they become irrevocably forgotten. This has caused some speculation to whenever items share similar origin or whatever the similarities they share are merely coincidental. Addendum 268-02. At agent's request and after approval by Dr. Klein, SCP-268 is being used with agents in active field duty. The results thus far have been favorable. Addendum 268-03. Field testing has been suspended. Through agent appears to have been on the payroll and all records, no personnel either on site or in higher command remember knowing or hearing about an agent. Further tests should be conducted only on D-class personnel and on no single individual for longer than 10 hours. Addendum 268-04. SCP-268's effect seems to shrink and become permanent as the individual subject were the artifact for extended periods of cumulative time. There is a marked difference in the potential SCP-268 effect on someone wearing it for the first time, and someone who has worn the artifact upwards of 5 hours on all other occasions. For example, someone who has not worn the cap before seems to dispel its effect merely by speaking. Those who have worn the artifact on several occasions for extended amount of time seem to be able to ask the observation question and receive answers with the subject who had worn the artifact for upwards of 15 hours. Subject who had worn the artifact for towards 15 hours was able to ask standing personnel the test chamber password, nearly causing containment breach and the escape of D-class personnel, and the security personnel in question reported being unable to recall parting with the information in question. Dr. Klein. Addendum 265-68-05. As of SCP-268 is missing. Its absence was discovered early in the morning by agent, and research analysis and its place was a note regarding things I needed my hat back. L.S. A full investigation of this security breach has been launched as of refer to